No, the only time I had a Cinnabon was in the Anchorage airport at 1 a.m., having not eaten for the previous 24 hours on my way to Alaska. It was not a good memory. All right. Hey everyone, I'm Claire. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I'm showing you a recipe for walnut-maple buns, and it's from my favorite category of baking, which is breakfast baking. And it's a recipe I really love because it has lots of super toasted walnuts and a sticky maple topping, but it's not too sweet. Super delicious, so I'm going to show you how to put it together. Sometimes people ask me, like, what's your favorite recipe? And I sometimes distinguish between recipes I love to make and recipes I love to eat. I love to make recipes like from the category of breakfast baking, like sticky buns, but I don't love to eat them because usually I find them too sweet. They're kind of a gut bomb. They're too big. And I don't feel good after eating them. So I wanted to create a recipe that I really loved, that wasn't too sweet, that had really nice texture, didn't dry out, and that I would want to eat for breakfast. So this recipe has a very soft dough, lots of toasted nuts, a little bit of orange zest, like all these things to kind of build complexity in the flavor, and it's not just sweet. The actual assembly of the buns does not really require a lot of special equipment. I have a rolling pin, a 13x9 pan. These are very standard items. But the sweet dough, which is in the book, this does require a stand mixer to put together. You can make it by hand, and I've done it before, but it's much easier in a stand mixer. So I have this right here with the dough hook on it. I have one recipe of the sweet yeast dough from the book that's risen and chilled, brown sugar, maple syrup, an orange for zest, unsalted butter, walnuts, kosher salt, ground cardamom, and a vanilla bean. You could make this recipe with any kind of slightly sweet yeasted dough like a brioche. I recommend using the sweet dough in my book. It's a very easy to put together all-purpose yeasted dough, and I have a recipe right here that's already risen and chilled, which you'll need to put together the buns, but I'm gonna actually back up and show you how to make the dough. So it's just a great dough to have in your back pocket. And once you kind of understand like the formulas or the process for cinnamon buns, you can use that dough to make all different kinds. So we have all-purpose flour, kosher salt, 3 large eggs, granulated sugar, active dry yeast, unsalted butter, and whole milk. Quick side note, if you're looking for exact measurements of all the ingredients, look in the video description. Some of you have been wondering, that's where you can find all the exact measurements. I'm just gonna roll through the recipe. So the first thing we wanna do is proof the yeast. Anyone that's watched any videos or read any of the recipes knows that I always start with proofing the yeast because I always use active dry yeast. So I'm starting with 1.5 teaspoons, and I'm gonna proof the yeast in this small bowl. Then I'm using milk to proof yeast. I actually like using milk because it has lactose in it, and that sugar, that natural sugar is there to sort of feed the yeast and it makes it bubble up. I could use a microwave for this, but I'm gonna warm this milk just in a saucepan. I'm pretty specific in the book about the temperature you want to proof yeast. The most important thing is that you don't really use anything hot or anything above 120 Fahrenheit because the yeast is pretty sensitive and you could kill it. But I don't really bother to take the temp because I figure if my body temp is around 98.6, I'm just looking for something that feels lukewarm to the touch. Okay, so this feels lukewarm. I'm gonna turn that off. And then 1/4 cup of this is gonna go to proofing the yeast. I'm setting the remainder of the milk aside because I'll use that in a second. The yeast is a lot less likely to dissolve in milk rather than water. So just slowly add it and whisk thoroughly. Sometimes you get little clumps of yeast, it happens. You can use the back of a spoon to kind of smash them and dissolve them, but you know, by slowly pouring and also by pouring the liquid into the yeast, you tend to get better dissolution? Dissolving? Dissolution? No. Dissolving? Sure. We'll go with that. So I'm gonna let this sit. The other thing is if you agitate this a lot, you're not really gonna see some of that active foaming and bubbling. So just don't touch it. But also, like, I know that I use this yeast constantly. I know that this yeast is still good, so I'm just kind of going through the motions to show you, but I could just keep going with the recipe and, you know, I know it would be fine. So while that's proofing, I'm going to start to combine my other ingredients for the dough. So I'm adding my all-purpose flour. I'm gonna put my granulated sugar in, 1.5 teaspoons of my kosher salt. And now I can kind of combine all of this, and now I'm gonna put in my butter. So I'm just tossing that in so the pieces are coated in the flour. And then I make a well in the center, so I just kind of dig a little bit of a hole in the middle of the bowl. I can pop that into the mixer. This yeast has been sitting maybe 5 minutes or so. It's not gonna have like big soapy bubbles in it. What I have are these patches of this bloomed yeast where you can see this sort of beige round in there. And that's that yeast that's feeding on the lactose in the milk and is activating. This goes into the well along with the rest of the milk and my 3 large eggs. Now I'm going to start with the mixer on low because I want this to just slowly incorporate the flour. And then once it brings in all the flour and that's hydrated, I'll increase the speed. And I want to mix this until I have a very, very smooth, supple dough that pulls away cleanly from the sides. This will take like 6 to 8, possibly even 10 minutes. If I were doing this by hand, I would pour the ingredients into the well, stir with a wooden spoon to bring it all together, and then I would try to work it in the bowl a little while, and then once it starts to hold together, I would knead it on the surface with a little bit of flour until it's really smooth. This dough is done. You'll find that it might be sticking to the bottom of the bowl, like it's not going to completely wrap around the hook, but when you have it on medium-high, it will clear the sides. You can see it's a pretty soft dough. I always form dough into a ball for rising because that helps it to rise up and out at the same time, and then it becomes easier for me to gauge how much volume it's gaining. What I'm doing here to form it into a ball is I'm taking advantage of the friction between the dough and the surface, so there's no flour here. And I'm just tucking the edges of the dough underneath, and I'm using a bench scraper. You can actually just use your hands and do this like this. So you don't, but like this part isn't that important. You just want a nice sort of round shape. And then I'm gonna flour this. So for a very even dusting, right? And then I usually kind of rub it on there. And then I want to coat the bottom in a little flour. That dough goes into the bowl. You can put it back into the mixer bowl as long as the bowl is pretty clean. Just put it in something that will have enough room for the dough to nearly double in size. And this is going to go into sort of room temperature / warm spot. And I want this dough to rise, but not quite double in size, more like 50 to 75% in size. And then we put this in the fridge because this dough is so soft, it's much easier to handle when it's cold and that butter is firm. So it kind of finishes its rising in the fridge. I have one in there that's already done and we're ready to pull that out. But first I want to show you how to make the nut sticky maple topping for your buns. I want to thoroughly toast these walnuts. I have 2 cups. My oven's on 350. I usually toast nuts in the oven because then they toast all the way through. Rather than on the stove top, you tend to just get like browning on the surface. I burn nuts all the time. I'm going to try to pay attention and smell them when they're approaching done. But I want them to be visibly browned all over. 8 to 10 minutes, maybe even up to 12. In the meantime, I'm going to make this kind of sticky maple topping that goes in the bottom of my pan. So I have my 13 by 9 pan here. I don't usually bake in glass, but it can be useful for a few reasons. I'm going to assemble it in glass, and then I have one that I set up, and we're going to bake it in a metal pan. I just didn't have 2 at the same pan. A lot of like sticky bun recipes have corn syrup in it, but I'm already using a liquid sweetener in the form of maple syrup, so I'm happy to forego any corn syrup in the recipe. So then a little bit of brown sugar, and then 4 tablespoons of butter. The last thing is a vanilla bean. If you don't have a vanilla bean, you can use extract, that's fine. Use 2 teaspoons of extract instead of the whole bean. What else? Hold on, let me see what else goes. I think I add salt to that, but I don't remember. Half a teaspoon salt. So what I want to do here is, maple syrup is mostly water. So I just want to boil out a lot of the water so I have something that's thick and syrupy. There's not a very well-defined endpoint here. Basically, once it comes up to a boil, I let it boil vigorously for about 30 seconds, and I figure at that point it's thickened.
I'm gonna check on your nuts.
The nuts aren't done, I can tell. I really do play like Russian roulette with toasting nuts, because I don't really set a timer. It's a very bad idea. That's why I burn them a lot. Okay, this looks good. Now I'm gonna pour this into my 13 by 9 pan. And I really like seeing those flecks of vanilla in there. I'm gonna melt the remaining 4 tablespoons of butter, which I will use during the assembly. So like, you don't need to wash this at all. All right, I think these look good actually. They could go a little darker, but you can see they're golden brown, very, very fragrant. While these cool, I'm gonna do the last component of the maple walnut buns, which is, it's a cardamom brown sugar mixture that goes inside the bun, which on its own has a little bit of sugar in it, but is not very sweet. I was, in this recipe, I was just very careful to not make it too sweet. And maple is sweeter than sugar. Maple is very, very sweet. So that's why there isn't a very generous coating inside the bun. So that is more brown sugar. I'm gonna add, I think it's 1 3/4 teaspoons cardamom. And if you're using cinnamon, I would probably increase it to about 2 teaspoons. I also love the way that cardamom plays off of citrus zest. Maya, hey little kitty, hey little kitty. Oh, and then also, oh, sorry. She's out. She came in like 5 feet. Good for her. All right, the remaining ½ teaspoon of salt goes in that mixture. And some orange zest, about a teaspoon of orange zest. This is a Meyer lemon. I thought it was an orange. It's not, so we're just gonna use Meyer lemon zest. But I would use an orange, it's gonna be a better flavor. And I'm just gonna use my fingers to mix this up, work the zest in. Hi, kitty. Hi, Maya. Standing between my feet. Hi, kitty. I have started having to leave the bedroom door open because the kitty door is like not really wide enough for her anymore. Poor Maya.
What's the latest with Felix?
Felix had to spend the night at the vet again last night. He still wasn't eating. So unfortunately, he stayed overnight again. But we're picking him up today no matter what, because I'm not paying for another night at the vet. He'll be fine. Right, Maya? Your food is in the bedroom. What are you doing? Go back in there. Don't look at me.
That's me.
Oh my God. That was you. Oh my God. There's another cat in here. All right. I'm just going to try to work around her. So that's the cinnamon sugar filling. And now the final step before I assemble the buns is crushing up all of these walnuts. Walnuts have that papery skin on them. That part doesn't taste great, so I'm leaving that on the surface. I don't need that in the recipe. What? I don't have it. Your food is in the other room. Are you serious? Oh, fine. I'm gonna feed her. Sorry, hold on. I can't believe this. It's very stupid. I put it in there. Okay, sorry. Back to this. Enough distractions, Maya. So I'm using my rolling pin. Obviously, I'm going to use this to roll out the dough. But before that, it's the perfect tool for bashing and crushing things. You can break up any large bits. I know these just go into my pan. So just distribute them around, and you can kind of press them down, and they'll settle into the maple mixture. All right, so this can just go off to the side. I'm going to save my rolling pin and also have a little bit of what I call bench flour, or just extra flour for rolling out. As I said before, the reason we chill this dough and I work with it cold is because it gives the butter that's in the dough a chance to firm up, and everything just kind of like holds together and is much more workable. So I'm just loosening it from the bowl. I sort of punch it down and degas it, but of course as you roll it out, you'll press out that gas that built up during the first rise. It will, as you roll it out though, the thinner it is, the faster it will come up to room temp. So you want to work, I'm not saying you have to work very quickly, but just don't walk away, leave it for 10 minutes, come back, because then it kind of defeats the purpose of starting with it cold. I want to get it to an approximate 1/4 inch thickness. The dimensions that I think work best for cutting it into 12 buns is about 20 inches by 9 inches. So what you can do is tug at the dough and create these sharp corners or sharper corners. This is that melted butter that I had hanging out in our reserved saucepan. So I'm brushing it all over to the very edge except for the far edge, because ideally I would like the spiral to seal. This doesn't look like a lot. It's not a generous coating, so I am sprinkling this all around. And then to make it a little more even, I like to pat this into the surface. So again, like a lot of recipes, you incorporate nuts at this point. I prefer to leave the nuts on the exterior. Then you end up getting a really nice spiral too. If you are a beginner and you're a little nervous about this rolling step, you could be working on a piece of parchment paper and then use the parchment to help you. But the dough is still pretty workable. So I'm starting at the long end closer to me, and I'm just creating that first little fold of the spiral. And then all I really want to do is continue to go from one side to the other, creating a spiral that is tight in the sense that it doesn't have like, you know, big air pockets in it, but I'm not stretching the dough onto itself and creating something with a lot of tension in it. I'm just making something that like holds its shape. All right, so that now I've rolled onto that long end, and I want the dough to rest on that seam so it kind of has a chance to stick to itself. And now what I like to do is, depending on how you've rolled your dough, you'll likely have a slightly thicker spiral in the center and then slightly tapered sides. So what you can do is sort of pinch and manipulate the dough to thin out any thicker parts, and then even like give those edges a little pat inward. So now I have something that's really even, and that means when I cut the buns, I don't get those little skinny ends. And I'm cutting it at 12. So the first thing I'm going to do is slice off just the very ends of the spiral, because I want to have like the full spiral exposed. So in half, then each half in half again for quarters, and then each quarter into 3 equal pieces. And then these go into the pan in a 4x3 grid. You don't need a lot of breathing room. The idea is that as these bake, they fuse together. So just space them evenly. And now what I want to do is cover them and let them sit at room temperature until they are 50% expanded in size, not doubled. If they were to be doubled, they would be actually overproofed because they gain a ton of volume in the oven. So they are going to come out of the oven much bigger than when they went in. But in this case, I know that once these buns are all kind of touching, that's when they'll be good to go. Again, these buns I made last night, and this is in a metal pan now. You'll get much more even baking in metal. But you can see the surface area of the pan is quite a bit larger than in glass. So they look a little bit different in proportion to the pan, but these are ready to go in the oven. They are proofed, they have grown in size, and they will expand to fill the entire pan as they bake in the oven. My oven's preheated at 350. They're gonna go, I have a rack in the center. They're gonna bake in the middle of the oven for 30 to 35 minutes. I wanna go until they look golden brown on the surface. Okay, the smell, I smell the maple and the vanilla. Maple plus vanilla does some like really special things. I don't know, what do they smell like?
Kind of like Cinnabon at the mall.
No, it doesn't smell like Cinnabon. Actually, I mean, that's it. Well, it's a good smell, I guess. Oh, I think this is the vet again. Hold on. All right, thank you for calling.
You're welcome.
Bye. You guys, he's still not eating, and they might have to put a feeding tube in. That poor kitty. All right, I'm now so depressed, I'm gonna pull these maple buns out of the oven. Poor Felix. Oh, they're done. Okay, so I have bubbling caramel around the sides, which is excellent. You can see they are golden brown. They've expanded, filled out the pan. They look really even. So I'm gonna let these cool for like 5 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm gonna cut around the sides because I don't want the buns to stick to the sides of the pan. You can wait too long. If I were to wait until these were fully cooled, there's a good chance those nuts and that maple mixture is gonna stick to the pan. So you still wanna do this while this is hot, but not like straight from the oven hot. I'm gonna flip. And then I let the pan kind of like sharply wrap it on the surface. Wow, they look so good. So I have a little bit of stickage on here, so that's fine. I'll While it's still hot, just scrape it off,
It smells really good.
right? It's not so hard to make. My sister has made them a million times.
Hi, Claire. Check it out. Whoa. Your sister Jane made some buns today, and they're pretty amazing.
What do you taste?
Goodness. Yeah, you did a nice job on it, Becky.
And I was thinking my other sister made them for I think New Year's Day or something. And then she never told me how they were, which makes me think she did not like them. I will be following up about that. So I love seeing these little thready, bready, I don't know what to call them. Whatever they are, that's a good sign. That is a texture that I want. The maple has like hardened and you have this shell, but then the inside is really pillowy and soft. Wow, I could really unspiral the whole thing. Ow, it's hot. The first thing I get is toasted walnut flavor, which I love because it really is so enhanced by the sweetness of the maple, and also the vanilla does kind of an incredible job of perfuming it. And so like there's a lot of subtlety in these maple walnut buns that you don't get in cinnamon buns between the cardamom and the citrus zest and the vanilla. This is a bun that like, it doesn't just read as straight sugar. I also love all of the textures. You have the soft crunchiness of the nuts, that coated exterior that's really well browned from the buns, and then the soft interior. And it's just like, there's like a lot going on here.
How does it compare to the Anchorage Airport?
I'm a lot happier eating these than the Cinnabon in the Anchorage Airport.
Do you think it'd be possible to call your sister real quick?
Yeah,
Try to catch her off
I think
guard?
she's definitely gonna pick up.
Hi, Aunt Claire.
Oh, are you with Elliot?
Always.
Emily, I'm filming right now, full disclosure. So you're on speakerphone. Can I FaceTime you?
Okay, let me ask Elliot. Elliot, can we FaceTime with Aunt Claire and put Paw Patrol on pause? Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's pause Paw Patrol. What can we help you with, Aunt Claire?
Okay, Emily, I have something I have to confront you about.
What? On video?
I have to confront you because you made the walnut-maple buns for New Year's Day and you never told me how they turned out. And we talked about it extensively.
Well, do you want to know my true take on that?
I knew it was gonna, I was like, I knew the fact that she didn't.
Okay, first of all, we did not use cardamom because that's nasty. We used cinnamon. Okay. Second of all, here's the deal with the cinnamon buns and what the issue was. They were delicious for what they are. But what we like, and I realize that it's totally lowbrow and like not good, but like we like a mall style or like airport style like Cinnabon. It's like yours is like a much more highbrow. They came out really. Oh, do you want to eat that? Yeah.
Oh wait, Elliot, do you want to eat a? Mama's gonna make you more maple walnut buns.
Oh, yummy.
I know, it's so yummy. You know what? I respect what you're saying.
What?
I respect what you're saying, and I'm not mad.
Yeah, it came out great. The recipe was great. They were really good version of what they were. It's just that's not our like house preference. Our
Got
house
it.
preference is something that is
Well,
real.
it might be Elliot's preference. Here, do
No.
you want to say hi to the crew?
Hi. Friends, say hi to Aunt Claire's friends. Hi, Aunt Claire's friends.
All right, Emily, I'm really glad we talked about this because I was thinking to myself the other day, like, Emily never told me about the buns, which made me think something.
You're good. You understand what I'm saying.
Yes, yes. All right, Elliot, have fun watching Paw Patrol. Love you.
Just say love you, Aunt Claire. Love you, Aunt Claire.
Okay, Emily, I'll call you later.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. God, wow, I feel actually pretty good about that. Also, like, how did she know we were talking about airport cinnamon buns? Really, like, full circle with that. As we've covered, just to recap, these are not the huge, overly sweet airport cinnamon buns drenched in icing. These are a much more complex, well-balanced, like multi-textured bun. They are my preference. To each his own. I respect what Emily said about their family preference, but I think that it's a great kind of bun to try, possibly a new style, and just super, super delicious. So really hope you try it. It's a great dough to work with, and also once you sort of have this technique down, so many possibilities of things you can make. So go ahead and give it a try. Let us know how it goes. Thank you for watching. It was so much fun to make this recipe. We have more to come, so stick around. Like and subscribe.
Hi, little kitty. Little shaved feet, little shaved feet.